Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. In this video I want to clearly explain the difference between proof of work and proof of stake. Both are what's known as consensus mechanisms, ways for cryptocurrencies to validate transactions, agree upon the state of the network, add a new block to their blockchain, and update that ledger. Now, proof of work uses computers to solve equations, and proof of stake uses owners of that cryptocurrency locking up their coins to validate the transactions. Now, let's dive into proof of work. This has been around since 1993. The term was coined in 99, but Satoshi Nakamoto made this famous when he invented Bitcoin in 2009. Proof of stake is slightly newer. In 2011, this was proposed as an alternative way to validate transactions that used less electricity. So both proof of work and proof of stake are ways to validate all these transactions going around the cryptocurrency network. Once they're verified, they're added to that blockchain as a new block and everyone agrees on the new state of the ledger. Now, proof of work does this by using computers that solve complex cryptographic equations, and this is called mining. Proof of work does this by requiring the coin holders to lock up or put something at stake, and they validate those transactions, and this is called staking, or you might have heard it called, forging, or a few other terms. But both are just ways to validate those transactions and for the network to reach a state of agreement. Now, this is different to banks or centralized ledgers that have their computers or their servers storing information and validating transactions. We see every week, stories of accounts being lost, data being breached, and all that sort of thing. So by having these distributed networks where everyone is validating transactions and agreeing upon the network is far more secure. So in proof of work, all these nodes in this network represent the miners, and in proof of stake, all these nodes represent people locking up their coins and staking them to validate transactions. I'm going to dive into the pros and cons of each, but one of the things we've seen in the news a lot lately is that by the end of the year, Bitcoin will be using 0.5% of the entire world's power. Now, why is this the case? Why has it doubled since even the start of the year, the amount of energy that it's consuming? Well, it's because it's very profitable. This is now a $6.7 billion industry. If you run those computers and help solve those equations and secure the network, you get a block reward. So every 10 minutes when a new Bitcoin block is created, you currently earn 12.5 Bitcoin and the transaction fees of all those transactions you confirmed. Now, I've been in Bitcoin since 2012, and back then you could mine cryptocurrency or validate those transactions with a simple laptop computer. But as Bitcoin grew in value, more people wanted to mine Bitcoin and earn Bitcoin. So it became harder and harder, those equations, because the difficulty adjusts so that those equations are solved on average every 10 minutes. So as more and more computers come on board, the algorithm automatically adjusts and becomes more difficult. As we see here, it's grown exponentially. Now, that's because you used to be able to solve those equations with just a laptop CPU. Then we had all these high power graphics cards trying to mine Bitcoin. And now you might have heard the term ASIC, so application specific integrated circuit. And all that means is that these computers are built for one thing and one thing only, and that's solving the Bitcoin algorithm, solving those equations, earning Bitcoin. So now we have these mining farms, and their entire job is just to try and solve those transactions. But obviously, if you don't win, if you don't solve that transaction, that electricity basically goes to waste. So that's one of the arguments that we're seeing against Bitcoin in the news lately. The next thing I want to talk about is the distribution and the risk of 51% attacks, because people like to join mining pools. Now, the reason that is if I have 1% of the computing power, I have a 1% chance of earning those Bitcoin block rewards and solving the equations. But just like joining a syndicate for Tats Lotto, so rather than having a 1 in a million chance, if I join with 100 friends, it increases my chances of winning by a factor of 100. So that's why we see people joining mining pools increase their chances of winning. Now, the 51% attack is possible in both proof of work and proof of stake. Now, let's think about proof of work. For more than half the network to be controlled by bad computers or bad actors, we would either need the bad guys to buy a lot of hardware, and that's very expensive and almost impossible to do. We see those miners selling out very quickly whenever they're made. The other way for that to be possible for 51% attack would be the three largest pools here to be overtaken by a bad network. And all that would mean is that they could start to do things like double spend. So spend Bitcoins twice to two people and then verify that themselves because they own more than half the network. So that's what a 51% attack is in proof of work. In proof of stake, we would need the bad guys to buy more than half of the cryptocurrency. Now think about how expensive that would be. You might not even be able to buy that much on exchanges. Owners of the coins might have that in their wallet. As they start to buy it, it pushes up price, and that is really exponentially more difficult to buy 51% and attack a cryptocurrency versus the other proof of work 51% attack. Both are unlikely, but we just have to be aware of how both of those work. Now, the next argument is obviously energy consumption. So proof of stake, where we simply have coins locked up in our wallet and we're connected to the internet, that's obviously a lot easier to run and uses less electricity than mining all these supercomputers. But in the future, it's my hope that we have more and more Bitcoin mining farms using renewable energy. So we see hydro dams in China, geothermal power plants in northern European countries. So I hope that, for example, in Australia, we have solar farms come on board, wind farms, and more of the Bitcoin mining becomes from renewable sources, and also has an incentive to build a renewable energy farm and pay that off with Bitcoin mining. So guys, I hope that's a reasonably clear explanation. As I said, the main things to get your head around in those concepts are that proof of work uses those computers to solve equations, and they're all competing. And proof of stake uses owners of those coins. Now, the last argument to this is that the computers don't really have any incentive other than earning money. They might not even really care about Bitcoin. If another coin comes along that's profitable to mine, maybe they'll all switch over and start mining it. Maybe not. It's up for debate. But in proof of stake, the people that get in early own lots of coins. They're the one that are earning more rewards as well. So if you own 50% of the coins, you've got a 50% chance to earn those staking rewards. And so the rich are getting richer. So both proof of work and proof of stake currently have pros and cons. There's different types of proof of work and proof of stake, which I'm going to talk about in the future. But this is all up for debate at the moment. This really is the current state of the argument and few of the issues surrounding both of the consensus mechanisms. I hope you've enjoyed that presentation. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and as always, thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.